Welcome to the GTN Show.
Yeah, the world's longest triathlon has just been completed, finishing on the top of Mount Everest.
Yeah, I don't think that one's going to be beaten, is it? We're also going to be delving into the things that we wish we knew way back when we started triathlon.
I feel there's quite a few things for me. We also have a bit of an update on Hayden Wild's horrific crash. We've got some new helmets and we're going to be looking forward to this weekend's racing, which is jam-packed and exciting.
Okay, we're going to kick things off with stuff that we spotted online, although saying that, this first one we missed actually last week, and it's thanks to one of you guys who pointed this out. It's actually Mail5405 says, "Hey GTN, did you know this Saturday, which was the 10th of May, Jonathan Gasilan, pro triathlete, just smashed a 6-hour world record in Grenchen Tissot Velodrome in Switzerland." So I obviously looked up the results and then found this post on Instagram. So yes, he covered 276.795 kilometres in 6 hours, which is averaging just over 46 kilometres an hour.
Wow, that's really impressive to be
holding that position for 6 hours.
And it's having a look at the photo, very aggressive position, having looked on his Instagram. So yeah, fair play. That's very impressive.
Yeah.
And he actually won Sebanias.
I know. It's really cool to see triathletes sort of mixing it up and really pushing cyclists at their own game, isn't it?
It's very cool. This news landed literally as you probably were filming the show last week. Lucy Buckingham and her partner Mark Buckingham welcomed their child into the world, their new baby, little baby Bucko. I don't actually know the name of their child.
Lily.
Lily. Oh, very nice.
Pretty name.
So yeah, congratulations to them. Also, a bit of an update on Hayden Wild. Of course, you mentioned the show last week about his horrific crash whilst he was abroad. So a bit of an update. He has broken 5 ribs, hairline fracture on the 6th rib, scapula broken, damaged lung, and stitches on his hip.
I mean, if you look at the X-ray or it's an MRI image they actually have on their Instagram of his scapula, I just like and also of the ribs. It's a really clear picture, but it just doesn't makes you cringe looking at it. It's, I think sadly that's going to be a long time for recovery.
Yeah. But he has said in his post a big thanks, obviously, his support team. He's got all the best people around him. Because he didn't have to have sort of like an operation on his lung or anything, he was actually able to leave the hospital. He's now, I believe, taken a flight to Belgium? To Belgium. And he's hopefully having an operation just this weekend or even today or Monday or whatever. It's all sort of ongoing. But I really hope he recovers quick. That's quite a traumatic.
It's horrific, isn't it? Yeah. Best wishes to Hayden Wild. Moving on to some very sort of positive, crazy news. We have mentioned Mitch Hutchcraft a few months ago. This was a man trying to do the world's longest triathlon. And at that point, he'd finished the triathlon part, so he'd already swum across the channel. He'd cycled from through France to India, which was a total of just shy of 12,000 kilometres. He basically then ran just shy of 900 kilometres to Kathmandu, where he then started the trek to Everest.
As you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then he had a further, 365 kilometres to reach the Everest base camp, which he arrived on the 16th of April, and then finally made that ascent to the top of Everest just this weekend gone, and summited on Sunday, I believe.
Yeah.
Completing the world's longest triathlon, a total of 13,000 kilometres. Whoa.
It'll be the world's highest triathlon, I think it's fair to say.
Now, he is hoping to raise money. He's hoping to raise £5,000 for SavSim, which is a London-based wildlife conservation charity that uses animals and nature to provide mental health support to military veterans.
Yeah, it sounds like a very sort of, lovely charity. He is hoping to raise £500,000. So, I guess the more people talk about it, and I think people are going to be talking about this achievement for quite a while.
Well, rolling on now into a bit of discussion, Heather. I want to chat to you about what you wish you knew when you first started triathlon. Because, not only have we done the sport for a long time, we've also absorbed a lot of information now, having been here at GTN, which hopefully we've shared a lot with you guys over the years. And I definitely sit here and reflect back on my time in the sport when I was racing and I think, God, I wish I knew that, or I wish I just did this, or I spent time doing that. I reckon we can make a whole 2-hour podcast.
Yeah, we're going to have to be strict with ourselves here, aren't we? I think And we're coming at very different angles as well, because you obviously raced as a pro and you went from short course into long course, whereas I've only raced as an age grouper, so we've got very different perspectives.
But you do have a lot of experience, obviously, from elite sport as well, so I think you can definitely bring something in there. Do you want to kick off? Go for it.
Oh, gosh, I've got a big list here, but I've sort of highlighted a few. And I think one that I'm going to start with is something that I experienced quite early on when I first qualified to go to Kona. There was someone actually, Susie Cheetham, a retired pro, sat down and said to me, don't be put off by the way everybody looks and all the kit looks. And I was sort of, didn't really know what she meant until I went there, of how amazingly ripped everybody looks and the amazing kit. And it isn't just a Kona, it's every race you go to. And I speak to so many people who are intimidated by that, because you see all this shiny, expensive kit. You see these people looking like they know what they're doing. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win. It doesn't even mean they're any good. And it's often those people that go under the radar, that just sort of have borrowed bits of kit but know how to work hard and know how to race well, are the better athletes. And I think that's just something that I know now I am that person who has all the gear because of where we work, but I'm really conscious of just how that comes across.
I think it is a really important thing to just have in your mind, because you can be so easily intimidated and scared. And actually knowing that it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
No.
And actually those people in all the gear, because it's a great thing as well if you're like investing in things like that, but they're also possibly equally as scared. Stood there looking at perhaps you, thinking the same thing. Wow, look how amazing she looks.
Getting that fast on that.
I mean, it was actually something that when I started in the sport triathlon, my coach at the time was really hot on us just racing on basic gear, and it was a really good learning curve, because I was turning up to races continually. People are on carbon bikes and nice deep section wheels, and we had aluminium bikes with basic, just sort of like box section wheels. And it would infuriate me because I knew I was giving away some time, but he always said, if you can beat them now on that kit, imagine what you'll be able to do in years to come. And it was a really cool incentive, and it sort of made me just appreciate those things.
And how satisfying when you did win.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, and I think that's a really good point. I think a lot of people should probably take that away. One of mine is wishing I knew more about nutrition back in the day.
Yeah,
and I know I
think we can both agree on that one.
And I know it's advanced so much over the years. There's so much more information and research out there. But I very much just turn up to races and I was like, I'll take 3 gels every hour or something like that.
Good going.
Well, yeah, that was what. So I'm taking maybe 90 grams of carbs at most on per hour. But that was kind of it. It's just like going, that'll do. And I couldn't really tell you after how much I'd taken. And particularly around electrolytes with hydration, which I now know
now we know that you're
I'm a very
sweater.
salty sweater. And I had loads of cramp issues. So I just wish I'd kind of done my due diligence and sort of gone away and like researched and found out how I could better improve my performance through nutrition. Because I sort of just thought, I'll do loads of really hard training and that will, of course, get me results.
Yeah.
But as we know, I think nutrition's like the 4th discipline.
Right? It is. It's definitely one that's relatively easy to work out. I think talking of being relatively easy, one thing that I sort of didn't sort when I started, and as a result never have done, is transitions. And I'm happy to spend lots of time and effort training, and I still have like one of the slowest transitions. Partly because I'm sort of we're often working, we're having to talk in those transitions. But and I look through results and I'm like, I'm only a few minutes off so and so. Oh, they were like how many minutes quicker than me in transition. And I know coming into long course, it wasn't something that was necessarily high on the agenda. And I think now I realise that maybe I should have invested that time. I guess whereas you're good at those. So.
But I guess that's the really important takeaway. It's like it does depend on what you're trying to achieve from the event. So if you just want to get around, you want to go a little bit quicker.
Which I guess is where I always was. And now I go, I should have done it. And I still could learn probably to do a flying mat, but I'm just not motivated to.
But you don't necessarily have to do a flying mount, and I think actually for a lot of people flying mount's not the correct answer.
Yeah, there's a lot more to my transition that needs work on than that.
Well, talking, I think that probably goes nicely into my next bit about like kind of free speed, because that is something obviously we talk about a lot on GTN. I love free speed, talk about aero gains, whether that's the friction of your chain, tyres, aerodynamic gains. But for a lot of my career, that's not something I really kind of focused on that much. And I sort of kick myself for that.
Yeah,
again, kind of comes back to, I just thought the harder I train, the faster I'll be and the better I'll be, and I'll perform well if I train really hard. And I was just giving away silly time. And I kind of, on reflection, look back and I realised some people were doing things that I could have been.
Yeah, but again, it was so less mainstream than it is now.
Yeah, and it was only towards the latter end of my career that I started to really understand the benefits of aerodynamics and really kind of improve my position, and then even more so now at GTN. I've done lots of interesting videos, but yeah, I wish, because it's like, yeah, I could train so hard. I could be doing 30 hours of training a week, but I could be giving away 20 watts to just like a small change in my position on the bike. And that's big. You train a long time for 20 watts, so...
Massively. I think also, like, I think it's changed, so it's not necessarily things we would do differently, because if we were coming into it now, the situation is different because so much more information is easily accessible thanks to social media and thanks to more streaming of, being able to watch sport a little bit more easily, so we can kind of, like, analyse stuff a bit more.
Yeah, you can absorb a bit from...
I mean, I'm not making excuses for us, but I think one that's kind of quite basic for me, which coming into triathlon, I already swam and I already ran to a relatively high level, and I just thought, I love running. I can't, could never wait to get to the run so I could show off my, enjoy the running aspect. And it took me a long time to sort of realise that actually there's no point in training lots for the run if my bike is not necessarily not very good, but more the fact that if I haven't conditioned myself enough to spend that time on the bike, that then I can enjoy the run. Because I might finish the bike and think, oh yeah, that was an okay time, and then comes the run and I feel awful.
Yeah.
Like, I always feel disappointed because that's the bit I look forward to.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very basic one, and I did learn it within. You haven't just realised this now, but it was one that I didn't know at the start for sure.
It's a really hard thing, isn't it, juggling 3 sports and trying to, if you're weaker at one, how much time you devote to the other. And I mean, if swimming's your weakest, that's a whole other minefield in itself with the technique side of things. Similarly with the training, it kind of comes back to, I clearly just love to kill myself, because I would think, like, as long as I finished a hard session kind of on the floor, then that was, job done, complete. I've done a really good job. But actually, I've realised and learnt so much more around kind of like training principles, but that necessarily isn't always the case. That I should.
We'd still see you killing yourself far too often, Mark.
But like, I actually trained way too hard at some points and should have been like reining it in, and I just kind of got like caught up. Sometimes because I trained in a squad and we were all sort of pushing one another. And I've learned, like, particularly long course racing, like there is a lot in just sort of holding back at times and never quite going into the red, because I was probably killing myself on a weekly basis in many sessions. I
think that's really useful takeaway for so many people coming into the sport, and you could get overwhelmed by how much you've got to train and how many sports there are.
And you watch like a Lionel Sanders video and you're like, oh my goodness, I need to do a 4x5k and one long run at like race pace or something, and you're like, well, no, you don't actually. And that's Lionel, he's a pro. It's the consistency, isn't it? I think, hopefully triathlon is a sport that you can do till you're a little bit older. So as a result, as a pro, and I think that's maybe one thing that, like, now we're sort of going a bit deeper, that, I didn't really start triathlon until I retired from pentathlon, so I was early 30s, and I was like, well, I'm obviously too old to do it seriously, so I never took it seriously. But now I see, so many pros are racing competitively into mid-30s, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should have really given it a go. It is an older sport than I realised. That's one thing. And also that, like, probably links nicely onto sort of like longevity of the sport, because triathlon is a sport that I got into because I loved it. I just loved the idea of swimming in the open water, riding on the open roads, running up hills and what have you. And I think if I had, and I know we were talking about this in the office before, if I just focused on like the branded races, which are really cool, don't get me wrong, if I just did those and focused on qualification for the world champs, I don't think I'd be doing the sport anymore. I've always made a conscious effort to mix it up with some of those smaller local races, get involved in the local community, and kind of like take it back to the roots. I know it sounds really cliche, but I think that's made a big difference for me, and is why I'm still doing the sport and loving it today. Yeah,
I think we're very lucky with where we live, and also, we do get with our job to go to amazing branded events, but then we also do get to go to those unique ones, and it's that community that makes triathlon, and I think that's something that I don't know, something I tell myself now, but it was something that I discovered as I got into the sport.
Because I think like in a great way we all get kind of lost in this, as I say, qualification for events, and it's really motivating, and we can end up, particularly long course racing, you sort of end up just training on your own a lot of the time. Turn up to events, and you do that for a few years, and you maybe start to get a bit stale and lose the love for it. And I think it's really important. Find that community, go and enjoy some of the, less serious races at times as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Any others?
I mean, there's loads on my list, but I think that's probably like enough for you guys to hear about us. I mean, I imagine quite a few of you watching have been doing triathlon for a little while. Some of you maybe not so long, but let us know what you wish you knew when you started. Whether that was last year, whether that was 10 years ago, we would love to know. You can do that in the comment section below.
Now for What the Tech. Now following the US launch of My Canyon, I think last month we mentioned it in the show, where basically you can choose from different colorways for your Canyon bike, the parts, the group sets and fit and everything. They've now launched that in the Asia Pacific region as well. So it's almost like, I said this in the last time, it's almost like going onto the Oakley store where you could customize sunglasses. It sort of feels like that, which is quite cool, quite fun. Even if you don't actually hit purchase at the end, which I did many times on the Oakley store.
Yeah, it's something sort of therapeutic, isn't there? A bit of window shopping with a nice new bicycle. Go and do it if you're that way inclined. We've also just spotted some new helmets coming out from on the XDS Astana team that Alex Dowsett has been helping, sort of part of the design process. They've got new road helmets and aero helmets, and they're talking about their road helmets being very much about the airflow, not just over the helmet, which is what people always think about, but also inside, partly for aerodynamics, but partly for cooling with the Tour de France coming up. Then triathlon related, they've got their new TT helmets, which again are these weird sort of shapes at the front that sort of look a bit Robocop.
It looks very similar to, not a million miles off that Rudy Wing Dream helmet design. With the very Stormtrooper.
Stormtrooper, that's the one I'm looking for. But then it's actually, when you look at the back, it's not quite so extreme.
So one of the things that they've really focused on is trying to make it work for everyone rather than just for one rider, as we find like a lot of helmets are sort of like, they'll work really well for one and not another. So they've got a slightly shorter tail, so it kind of tucks in at the very kind of like, I guess, the top of the neck there. But yeah, interesting. Another thing I found is just XDS. I'm struggling to find much information about their products. You go on their website and I can't really seem to buy things or find those helmets. So I guess just watch this space, but it's cool to see more helmets coming through.
Yeah, always.
All right, on with the race news again. And Heather has been practicing the pronunciation of this race all day.
Yeah, Cesanatico in Italy saw the challenge middle distance race, which was won on the women's side by Gabriela Zelinka, and the men's was Alessio Crociani. I didn't practice his name, but hopefully
I think you did very well there. And we also had Challenge Salou this weekend, race that you've done before actually.
Yeah.
That was won on the women's side by Elisabetta Curidore, and on the men's side, Tom Davis.
Oh, you got that one, got that right. They've put that race later, haven't they? Because I remember it being early April and freezing cold, and hence why there was no swim last time. So they've moved it later in the year, which is probably a good idea to have the full swim bike run.
Yeah, true. We also had, of course, 70.3 St George's weekend, which had a stacked field. Should we start with the women's race?
Yeah.
Yeah, so on the women's side, it's Vittoria Lopez that actually was at the front of the race from early on, obviously a very strong swimmer. She had an advantage on the likes of Paula Findlay and Chelsea Sodaro. She actually did impressively well on the bike. She held the lead for at least half of the bike before finally getting caught by Paula Findlay. And the pair actually, they rode incredibly well, and 5 minutes into their chases, so Danielle Lewis came into T2 in third, obviously a super runner. Now, interestingly, Vittoria Lopez actually charged out of transition ahead of Paula Findlay, but very soon actually pulled up as sort of Paula passed by her. Turns out that she's actually kind of coming back from a stress reaction, and I guess that was maybe always the game plan, which is probably why she rode so well and so hard.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Why not?
Fair play. Anyway, so Paula Findlay raced away to take the win ahead of Danielle Lewis, and then Jackie Herring in third.
Yeah, that was Paula Findlay taking another win at that race, and the last time that these athletes get a chance to at St George. It was, I think, sort of an emotional one for quite a few from looking at some of the Instagram posts. And all eyes on the men's race were on that sort of potential battle between Lionel Sanders, Sam Long and Magnus Ditlev. And, I mean, spoiler alert, Lionel Sanders is back in form, isn't he?
Blimey, he's doing so well. So Magnus Ditlev was towards the front of the race, or got himself towards the front of the race quite early on the bike.
As expected.
As expected. But kind of something seemed a bit off. He wasn't like, I would say, the usual Magnus that we always see, just charging off the front and putting minutes into everyone. Because, I mean, Lionel, obviously a super rider himself, but he was gaining time on him. Magnus actually suffered a puncture on his front wheel, so we saw him on a kind of a very shallow wheel. Lionel caught up and then sort of passed and was
Lionel
away
had
with
a 2-minute 45 deficit out of the swim, which just shows sort of how strong his bike and run is at the moment. Yeah, he had the quickest bike of the day, actually, a 1:58, which I think was a bike course record, which is going to stand forever at St George. To take that overall win quite convincingly by over 2 minutes ahead of Sam Long, who on the run looked like he might start to close for a moment or two, but then I think he realised it was too big a deficit. And it was actually Colin Schutz from the USA who came in third.
Yeah, very impressive. Some exciting racing. And we've got even more coming this weekend because we've got not just the long course racing, but also the short course racing. We've got the second round of WTCS series, this time in Yokohama. I mean, sadly, of course, Hayden Wild won't be there. He was one of the big name favourites heading to that. We have got the likes of Matt Hauser, Vasco Velasha, the list goes on. Leo Berger, Dorian Collins, Morgan Pearson. So that's going to be super hot. And then also on the women's side, we've got Cassandra Beaugrand racing.
Yeah. I know. She's done a few indoor races this year and sort of looks very much in form, and we've seen how quick she's been running in the pure running races. So I think the World of Triathlon is excited to see her back. We've also got Beth Potter, so 2 of the podium from the Olympics are going to be racing, and then the 3 Germans who podiumed at the last WTCS are going to be there as well.
You know who I'm excited to actually see as well in that mix is Leonie Perriot after some of her run performances over the winter. So I'm hoping she can kind of convert that into triathlon because I feel like she's someone that we often look past.
Well, it's easy, isn't it? If you're in the French team and you've got the reigning Olympic champion in your team, you are sort of almost going slightly under the radar. So, I think that's going to be really exciting. It's a Olympic distance race as well.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time, hasn't it, since Abu Dhabi?
We also have next round of the Ironman Pro Series event, Aix-en-Provence, 70.3 distance. A whole host of athletes racing. We've got the Norwegians, Christian, Gustav and Kasper. We've got Leon Chevalier racing on the women's side. A whole host. We've got Nikki Bartlett, Lizzie Rayner, Lisa Patera, various athletes racing. So that's going to be a very exciting race. But there's also Ironman Lanzarote this weekend. Lisa Charles Barkley racing?
I think she's just posted that she's back in her favourite place. So she's back out training in Lanzarote ahead of that.
We've got the championship in Samarin.
James is racing. And a few pros, I think.
So James is actually heading out there to take part and race. We've got a quite cool video coming on that where he's optimising everything. So that's going to be really cool.
Apart from his training.
We've got Ironman 70.3 Chattanooga. All various other age
so there's going to be a lot to talk about next week, I think, when it comes to the show. On to Try Spy. And last week we had this photo, which got some good wrong guesses. Our first, before we reveal, someone here, Citan83 says, looks a bit like Mark Threlfall.
Do you think that looks like?
I mean, I'm looking at the picture and looking at you, and I can't see it. I mean, it's a male eye.
I know who it is. I'd say he's a pretty good-looking cat. I'm pretty happy with that.
Cool.
I'll take that
compliment.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
Graham.
You,
we've got Graham Hetherington says Joe Skipper, Rush Fish, Brad, Lionel Sanders, Just Try Harder, Johnny Brownlee. All of you. It was this.
It was Daniel Bakkegaard. Yeah, so a few of you, White Samurai, Greg Sudbury, Daniel Bakkegaard. Yeah, so you were all right. Sadly, not me. But this week's photo, here it is. Do your best. Say what?
Oh, it sounds so much better with 2 of us. You compliment my voice, Mark.
It's the tones.
Yeah. We have had some lovely comments this week underneath the video from the world's largest triathlon when I went in Taiwan. I've actually only chosen one because some of them were just too complimentary and I felt like I couldn't really put them in here because I feel like it's blowing my own trumpet a little bit too much.
We struggled to get you through the door.
Yeah, exactly. You guys are just too nice. And I do read them all, so thank you.
In fairness, we have sent you to a few triathlons lately.
Yeah.
Quite last minute, a couple of them.
A few.
So thank you for doing them. Oh. But they've also been really cool to watch and just the kind of like journey. They've been very different as well. So the latest one, you went to Challenge Taiwan, like one of the biggest triathlons, if not the biggest triathlon in the world. Quite a cool experience.
It was very cool, yeah. I mean, like very last minute, but I'm glad I went. And that was like, USA is a cool country, and I'd been there once years before, so it was cool just to go with a different hat on, with sort of, just seeing triathlon different parts of the world. And like, again, back to our earlier conversation of just doing events that are really cool and seeing, it wasn't inspiring my quick transitions, but just seeing the way people approach that event.
Well, you're very modest. You say the transitions weren't quick, but you won.
No, I was trying to skip. That's why I didn't put those bits in. Yeah, but it was more about taking part out there. Like, on the whole, it was just such a cool vibe, and you sort of felt like, I did feel a little bit silly with my TT bike. I was that person with all the gear, so I did feel I had to do some sort of performance to sort of back it up a little bit.
Cool. Well, you had a lovely comment from, just one of many subtle forces. Congrats and attention, GTN. You have got yourselves into a new series, Heather's TTTTT, Triathlon Travels, Trials and Tribulations. So many T's. But I think he's got a point. I think maybe
we'll keep going. Yeah, but you've been busy as well.
Well, I was actually, just before we move on, I've got another event I thought maybe we could send you off to. I've done it before. It's really good. I fully recommend it. Highly rated. The Bog Snorkeling World Championships.
That's always been on my bucket list.
Yeah, actually, they also do a triathlon.
You know how I love exotic locations. Where is it?
Coming up, it's mid Wales. I think it's coming up in the next couple of months. So
let's hope it stays dry and there'll be no bog left.
But no, talking of which, other events. So we are in the season right now. We are pretty much racing every weekend, filming stuff for you guys. I rather stupidly threw myself into an Elite Xterra race last weekend, the weekend before last. I regretted it probably about 400 metres into the swim. Like, seriously
and
regretted it.
And that's your, like, comfort zone usually.
Yeah, like, I had very deep regrets. And anyway, I kind of was in the mix. I vlogged and kind of filmed everything. It was incredibly painful, and that video is landing this weekend, so stay tuned for that.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
But yeah, there's going to be more of that sort of thing coming.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed today's show. If so, please give it a thumbs up, give it a like. See you next time.